Good day and welcome to News Now on TV360. I'm Thelma Okoro. No fewer than 2.4 million people have lost their lives as a result of the activities of Boko Haram terrorists in the northeast part of the country. This is what Nigeria's Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative have just confirmed. According to the body, not only have this amount of people lost their lives, there has also been a large number of people displaced by the insurgency. The board says that over 14 million people have been displaced by Boko Haram. To assess the damage done to Nigeria's northeast region, the group visited areas ravaged by the insurgency. They also paid a visit to Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, in Abuja, the nation's capital.
We are very much aware that over 2.4 million people lost their lives in the northeast, and over 14 million are displaced from their original source of abode and livelihood. The Buhari Plan long-term economic development section covers infrastructure development, agricultural revitalization, educational transformation, health sector reforms, entrepreneurship and job creation, trade and market development, safety and security, environmental protection, solid mineral development, good governance, and regional strategic growth management, which are the purview of this subcommittee. We want to impress upon all that the overall objective of the Buhari Plan is restoring stability to the Northeast through sustainable socio-economic activities.
When we came in May 29, 2015, 14 out of 20 local governments in Borno State were under the sovereign authority of Boko Haram. Today, not one single local government, not one single ward is under the sovereign authority of Boko Haram. And this is, I must say that we do under-celebrate our military, because this is a feat which is very rare, and this is a feat that has made it possible for people of the Northeast to resume normal life. On our part, we would assist you in any in any manner, because we are very particular about narrative. We must change the narrative, and here it is. This is where your task becomes very, very onerous. We must de-radicalize our people. We must ensure that the young ones don't just hear, one narrative.
The Nigerian police force has arrested the suspected kidnappers of the students and staff of the Nigerian Turkish school in Ogun State. The 5 students and 3 staff members were rescued on Wednesday, barely 2 weeks after they were abducted in their school in Isheri area of Ogun State. In a statement issued, the police say the kidnappers were arrested based on intelligence gathered during the course of the investigation. The police say the 4 suspects confessed to the crime and are cooperating with the Nigerian police force. They have been identified as Philip Joel Kakadu and Romeo Council, known as Ro, Totki Okoda and Bekwe Agbojule. One of them was caught with over 1 million naira cash. Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has dismissed reports suggesting that President Muhammadu Buhari is ill. In a statement, the minister said the rumors were false, insisting that the president is hale and hearty, and condemned the purported reports of emergency meetings of the state governors in Abuja or elsewhere. The minister therefore urged Nigerians to ignore the rumors and warned those spreading such messages to stop. The president is currently in the UK on a 10-day leave. He is expected to undergo medical checkup during that visit.
I feel it is very much in order to use this opportunity to debunk the report in a section of the press today that governors are meeting in Abuja today, and that they will at the end of the meeting send an emissary to London to see President Buhari. I want to say categorically and emphatically that there is no iota of truth in this. Governors are not meeting here in Abuja because there's no need for it. There's no plan to send any ministry to London to see the president. Again, I want to say the president is here and hearty in London, where he's observing his 10-day vacation. Let us please all shun all reports that are insinuating the president's ill health or death. Let us stop pushing our leaders ill health and death. Those behind this, outright falsehood, we implore them to desist, because they must understand one thing: it is because Nigeria exists, that is why they can practice their professions. And in this very, very tense time, we implore them to stop overheating the polity.
A federal high court in Abuja has ordered the return of the OPL 245 oil block to the Nigerian government. According to the judge, Justice John Soho, the block will be retained by the government pending completion of investigation by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. OPL 245, considered the richest in Africa, is estimated to contain about 9 billion barrels of crude oil. The license was awarded during the regime of a former military dictator, Sani Abacha, under the supervision of then Minister of Petroleum, Dan Etete. It was then sold for $1.3 billion in 2011 to ENI and Shell. However, the sale has been trailed by numerous controversies. A Lagos State High Court has sentenced 2 people accused of fuel subsidy fraud to 10 years imprisonment. Adoha Ugonadi and Walter Wagbosoma were charged alongside their company Ontario Oil and Gas. According to the judge, Justice Latifat Okunu, the sentence would commence from January 13, 2017. She also ordered compensation from Ontario Oil and Gas, asking the company to refund 754 million naira, being the amount it defrauded the Nigerian government. A British High Court on Thursday blocked pollution claims against Shell by more than 40,000 Niger Delta residents demanding action over decades of oil spills in the Niger Delta region. Members of the Ogali and Bile communities had applied for the case to be heard in Britain, arguing that they could not get justice here in Nigeria. But the High Court in London says it does not have jurisdiction to hear the case. Policemen from the Federal Capital Territory Command clashed with members of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria in Abuja, the nation's capital. The Shiite sect was marching to the National Assembly in protest of the continued detention of their leader, Ibrahim El-Zakzaki, when the clash ensued. TV360's correspondent in Abuja says policemen fired tear gas canisters at the Shiite members during the encounter to disperse the crowd. This led to a confrontation between the Shiite sect and members of the Nigerian police force. Now, many of the protesters were arrested during that clash. A former governor of Lagos, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is proposing a review of Nigeria's monetary and fiscal policy. Tinubu is a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress. The former governor advised the federal government not to allow cheap imports to impede the development of industries and sectors as the country battles with recession.
The decline of oil prices threatens a long-term phenomenon. It placed the nation in a recession last year and have written several times before the end of the administration of Jonathan. Watch out, this might happen. The oil prices fall reveal the structural weaknesses of our national economy. We've identified things long and years back, but did not do anything. In the situation we face, deficit spending is essential to boost the aggregate demand and direct funds to the project that build infrastructure and boost the economy. We must stimulate the economy. We must better harmonize monetary policy with visitor policy. It underscores our goals. If monetary policy is unduly tight, as a time fiscal policy begets deficit spending. The CBN has to replace, the Central Bank of Nigeria has to revisit the monetary policy of this nation. Yes, we agree that the economy must be stimulated. Yes, and I agree. We must not be afraid of deficit spending. But if the government is borrowing on treasury bills at 18%, competing with the private sector, the effective rate, not that will be 24%. What will business will you do if you are paying interest at 24%?
Nigeria, Yemen, South Sudan and Somalia will most likely be affected by famine in 2017. According to a new report released by the Famine Early Warning Systems Network, this is a huge concern for global agencies. The agency, which is supported by the United States Agency for International Development, estimates that 70 million people across 45 countries will require emergency food assistance in 2017. Stating persistent conflict, severe drought and economic instability as reasons for the famine, the agency urged donors to allocate available financial and human resources to areas where the most severe food insecurity is most likely to occur. Security information experts across West Africa are in Abuja, Niger's capital city. They are holding a meeting which is aimed at finding out just how important the use of information is to prevent conflict in the region. The forum had public information managers and spokespersons of security agencies in attendance.
We must again realize as security agents that we are not the only stakeholders when it comes to national security. National security in itself, by definition, is a very broad concept, and there may be the military aspect to it, but again, there's also the economic perspective, and then we have so many stakeholders when it comes to that. So the press is a stakeholder also in national issue, national security, national development, and then as many stakeholders as there are, we need to work to forge a common front to be able to operate. Sometimes you find conflicts in the course of that interaction, and I believe that this particular workshop provides an opportunity for stakeholders to be able to better appreciate and understand themselves, and then find a way to operate together for the benefit of Nigeria and for the common good.
The public deserves to know how we police them and how we protect them. There's a difference between information and intelligence. We are not to hoard information, no doubt, but to ensure that the information we are disseminating are properly managed to ensure adequate security of life and property across the country. And I want to make it abundantly clear that we are going to build on the lessons of this conference to ensure that we do our job properly and as is expected.
When most of the information officers gathered, the essence is for us to strategize, to note those areas that we usually have a shortfall and to be able to balance them, to forge ahead. You recall that in most cases, our institutional heads might not appreciate the volume of work we are doing on their behalf. But at the same time, we must be able to stamp our authority in terms of managing information, realizing that we are the ones that the onus fall on. And realizing so, we must be able to put on the table those aspects that will always better our lot and of course improve their own existence in terms of managing all these institutions.
Lagos State's electoral body says it is ready to conduct free and fair elections in all the 57 local government areas in the state. Chairman of the body, Justice Ayotunde Phillips, said this during an inspection tour of council areas in Lagos' East Senatorial Zone.
The local government elections is drawing near, and all hands must be on deck to make the exercise a successful one. This necessitated an inspection tour of LASEC offices in some council headquarters in Lagos. The LASEC team, led by its chairman Justice Ayotunde Phillips, visited Ikosi-Ejirin LCDA, the Bejuleki, Ekpe and Eredo councils area to see the level of preparedness. The chairman said every council must make available conducive office space for LASEC in their various council area for efficiency.
Today we've gone around the Ekpe axis and we've gone to 5 local governments and LCD is here today. And we saw that, well, lots of space available in most, but all of them need a total upgrade. And we've spoken to the sole administrators where they were available, and those who were not available, we've left word for them that they should kindly assist us.
We are looking at elections, and we are also looking at the conditions in which our officers are being accommodated in the various local government councils to see how prepared they are for us and how they have prepared our staff too with regards to that imminent election. So that is what has taken us out. And from what we have seen so far, there is a wide gap between our expectations and the realities on ground. So that is why we are appealing to the local councils, the management of the local councils, to help us to be able to do the job that we have been mandated to do by providing at least some minimum modicum of accommodation that will meet some minimum standard for our staff.
Permanent Secretary of LASEC, Olumide Lawal, said the tour had shown that there was a wide gap between expectations of the Commission and what really obtained in each of the councils. He pointed out that while the Commission had an electoral officer in each of the councils, the Commission would appreciate if the council authority could assign support staffs to the electoral officers in their councils, particularly as the next election were around the corner.
From our own end, we have staff located in each of the councils, but we are also requiring the councils to assist us in providing some support staff. You can see if you've been following us, we have always been making that an issue at every stop, that we will appreciate any support staff that you can provide for the electoral officers.
Olumide Lawal said the Commission would soon embark on stakeholders meeting where it would engage and consult with relevant groups and political parties. Oluwole Ojo, TV360 News.
Corruption not in my country.
That was a very good business.
Yeah.
The furniture you brought was very perfect.
That's how we roll.
Because then let me do you receipts.
Yeah. How much was it again?
1 million naira.
Okay, write 2.5.
Mbano. The deal was for 1 million naira now.
Okay, write 3 million. I'll give you 500.
Oh no, I don't do business like that now. Yeah.
In that case, give me back my check. Let me go and look for someone that understand business.
Take.
Your loss.
It is only for incorruptible customers. What are you talking?
Now get out.
What kind of this?
You will just die.
No,
you will die.
That is the door. Now get out from here.
Rubbish.
Look, my people, make we only add money for original invoice price. That's not corruption. Say no, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Business stories are up next. Fidelia has all the latest.
Thank you, Thelma. Lagos State Governor Akinwumi Ambode has presented checks worth over 1 billion naira to 705 beneficiaries of the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund pilot scheme. The governor says the setting up of the Employment Trust Fund is in response to the challenge of unemployment in the state. The loans have been provided at a rate of 5% per annum, far cheaper than the prevailing bank interest of 25% per annum.
Our role as the representatives of the people is to constantly find solutions to societal challenges and improve the lives of our people. Today, 705 beneficiaries will receive various amounts of money ranging from 50,000 naira to 5 million naira, totaling almost 1 billion naira to grow and enhance their businesses. We are funding businesses and individuals, including carpenters, hairdressers, electricians, automobile parts repairers, block makers, bakers, fashion designers, cake makers, food sellers, kerosene retailers, mobile money agents, painters, plumbers, photographers, and light manufacturers of liquid soaps and water. For small and medium enterprises, we have provided loans to people in hospitality, ICT, education, food and beverages, and agriculture. These beneficiaries are making history as the first set of beneficiaries of this Employment Trust Fund. And my charge to you is very simple. You must use these funds responsibly, grow your businesses, create jobs for our unemployed youths, and contribute to the growth of the Lagos State GDP.
And if you're putting in place a large project like this, because it's quite a lot of money that's going to be and that's been entrusted to us, you typically will do a pilot first. And we decided to do a pilot of our systems, reach out to all the different bodies within the state that had actually put in place a process themselves to generate entrepreneurs looking for funding, who they had trained and who were sure that will cut across the breadth of the state. And that's what we did. And what we see today is the outcome of that pilot, which is still ongoing. But we have 705 beneficiaries today who have gone through that process of applying, being screened by a reputable international firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and the board meeting, going through all the various applications. We have funding available for people that have requested for as low as 30,000, where you are a microfinance institution, to small and medium scale of a maximum of 5 million.
Investment and research firm AfriInvest says the short to medium-term outlook of Nigeria's economy would be highly dependent on an increase in oil output by 2017. AfriInvest, in its latest economic outlook report for Nigeria, says the high concentration of forex-dominated loans has increased risk-weighted assets in the financial sector following pressure on forex rate. Our correspondent, Abiola Ismail, has that detail.
The economic future of Nigeria still remains bleak. Access to capital markets for debt and equity financing remains tight due to the weak macroeconomic backdrop and investment sentiment. These are part of the submission released by the investment and research firm AfriInvest West Africa in its economic outlook report titled The Nigerian Economy and Financial Market 2016 Review and 2017 Outlook, Reform or Be Relegated. The report explains that the rise in non-performing loan to foreign exchange forex crisis, low oil prices, which fell below trend production volume, the tight monetary policy, which plunged the economy into recession, while the asset quality of banks has sharply deteriorated and resulted in liquidity crisis in the financial sector.
So all these factors, led to the high inflation that we are witnessing at the moment. If we remove energy prices from the calculation of inflation, we are less than 50% actually in 2016.
The three major factors will include: number one, policy uncertainty that remains the biggest risk factor in the year. We think investors are now looking at Nigeria as an investment destination, not because of our attractive demographic features anymore, but in terms of how consistent is our policy, how well or how sound is governance, and of course, what is the quality of regulations and reform that we are going to be putting forward to fix our challenges.
On the consideration of another asset management corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, typed bailout to acquire stressed assets. Ike Chioke, the managing director, AfriInvest, says the feasibility of this is doubtful given the stressed finances of the federal government and already encumbered balance sheet of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. He said Nigeria's business cycle would be highly dependent on the ability of the policymakers output in 2017.
There are certain policy issues that don't balance and they don't see a future. So we're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. And while inflation is now 18.5% and interest rates are 14, the MPRs are 14, to go and say, oh, let me get a positive real rate of return for investors and move interest rates to 20% will be disastrous, to say the least. Quite frankly, we've seen that interest rate is really not being a driver in the amount of borrowings that people do. It's actually more like the reforms in the real sector that will drive people to go in there.
The 2017 budget, which the government is optimistic will address the economic issues, given current macroeconomic reality, will require the focused commitment of both the executive and legislative arms of the government in order to get passed into law so that timely implementation can begin to achieve the objective of stimulating economic recovery through increased infrastructural spending. AfriInvest believes that activities in the Nigerian economy in 2017 will be broadly dependent on the federal government's resolve to implement tough but necessary structural reforms in order to recalibrate the economy towards the path of recovery and rebuild confidence in monetary policy. Abiola Ismail, TV360, Lagos.
The Manufacturer Association of Nigeria wants the Monetary Policy Committee of the CBN to review downward its 14% interest rate to 5%. President of the group, Frank Jacob, who made the remarks in Lagos on Thursday, explains that with the present economic crisis, manufacturing sector will continue to face a tough situation in doing business in the country. Business correspondent Abiola Ismail now reports.
The reality of difficulties faced by the manufacturing sector in Nigeria seems to be enormous. The inability to access forex from commercial banks, ban on 41 items identified as core ingredients for major manufacturers, the epileptic power supply, and unwinding taste of Nigerians to imported items all summed up to contribute to the difficulty of doing business in Nigeria. As expected, the group, through its president, Frank Jacobs, says man is still engaging the Central Bank of Nigeria on the need to bring down the interest rate to single digit.
We don't think it's the best for the economy because we have been shouting and begging and making noise to the government that the current rate of interest rate does not encourage manufacturing. We've been asking for a 5% interest rate, even if it is concessionary for the manufacturing sector, since manufacturing sector creates the job, empowers the people economically.
On the issue of 41 items on the list of prohibited imported goods, the man president says there is a need for a review of the items on the list so that the difficulties facing the sector in sourcing raw materials will be minimized. He added that banks are not cooperating with man in sourcing the 60% allocation of forex meant for the sector.
The fault is that of the commercial banks. But we tried to engage the commercial banks and they said, well, if CBN gives us money and tell us to allocate to 60% to manufacturers, they will do that. But if they source their own money from alternative sources, CBN cannot come and tell them how to use it, which in a way makes sense. So what we're saying, government should make more foreign exchange available if they truly want to implement that 60% allocation directive.
The group noted that to rebound the economy, the government must encourage the patronage of locally made goods with sustainable economic policies that will make ease of doing business attractive to prospective investors. Abiola Ismail, TV360, Lagos.
Nigeria's naira is seen broadly stable on the parallel and official foreign exchange market next week. This comes as international money transfer agents sustain dollar sales to bureau de change operators. The local currency was quoted at 498 to the dollar on the open market on the black market, broadly unchanged from 497 a dollar last week. While banks quoted the naira at 315 a dollar, but is expected to close around 305 to the dollar, the level it has traded at since August last year. CBN said on Tuesday that it would continue to provide hard currency with priority given to manufacturing industries that need to import raw materials and spare parts into the country. Oil prices were driven higher by a weakening dollar on Thursday. Benchmark Brent crude was up 45 cents a barrel at $55.53 a barrel, while U.S. light crude futures were up 35 cents at $53.10 a barrel. Traders attributed the gains largely to the dollars, which has lost 3.9% in value since peaking in January. However, oil prices were cracked by data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, showing an increase of 2.84 million barrels last week in U.S. crude inventories to 488.3 million barrels, pointing to an ample supply in the world's biggest markets. Well, that's all on business. Thelma will be back with more stories. Don't go away.
Corruption not in my country.
Hello? Yeah, I found your wallet in front of a supermarket. Meet me at Apple Junction. Yes, I'll be waiting for you.
Now we find out. Two of us.
Thank you very much, officer. You know, it's surprising that men like you still exist in the police force.
Yes, so... Oh, yes.
This is just a token of my appreciation.
Oh, no, you don't need to do this. We're only doing our job.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
You're welcome.
Now I know police is really my friend.
Yes.
Friend. Hey. Okay, which came up with this one? I don't understand.
You know your problem. You are greedy. I'm a policeman who is doing his job. All forms of corruption in the force, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back. The Gambia's new president, Adama Barrow, has returned to the country to assume power days after his predecessor went into exile. Barrow, who has been staying in neighboring Senegal, won elections in December last year. However, a handover was stalled when Gambia's president of 22 years, Yaya Jammeh, refused to step aside from office. He left for exile just last weekend after mediation by regional leaders and the threat of military intervention. Barrow was sworn in as president of the Gambia at the Gambian embassy in Senegal a week ago, but a public inauguration on home soil is planned for him. He has also asked an ECOWAS force to remain in the country for 6 months. Nigerian athlete Blessing Okagbare will be awarded the silver medal at the Beijing 2008 long jump event. Okagbare's gain comes after the silver medalist in that event, Tatiana Lebedeva, was stripped of her medal. The IOC had on Wednesday confirmed Lebedeva's samples from Beijing 2008 resulted in a positive test for a banned substance. As a result, she was disqualified from the Olympic Games in Beijing. Okagbare, who won bronze in that event, is expected to be elevated to the silver medal slot. Now, the Williams sisters are not the only ones making history in Melbourne. 17-time Grand Slam champion Roger Federer has also qualified, for the 2017 Australian Open final after edging past fellow Swiss Don Wawrinka in a thrilling 5-set semi-final clash. The 35-year-old seemed like he was leading for an easy win, but after winning the first 2 sets, Wawrinka roared back to win the next 2 sets, which is 6-1, 6-4. The match eventually entered the 5th and final set, which Federer won 6-3. The victory sees Federer qualify for an impressive 28th Grand Slam final in that tournament. That's all we have on News Now. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Thelma Okoro.